Morning, it's a cold Saturday morning and Juden's on the camera. We've redone the YouTube video, which will come after this. We didn't realise that the music track had got screwed up in the background. We've taken that off anyway because the comments were unanimous in that they didn't like the music. So we've redone it. It's the same video, just without the music and without our cock up. So enjoy. Dabla.
Right, talk me through it, big boy.
So this is RS3, and it's come from our friends over at VGS, Chris. So they've had this one come in. It's been built by someone else, and it taps. Tap, 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 tap,
Not good.
No, so we built the first RS3 into the 8s, which was Berto's. It's not the fastest in Europe anymore, but it was. We built Sean's, which is the fastest TTRS in the UK. So we built quite a lot of these, and they're fast. So EcoTune built both those cars. So we've got a lot of experience with these engines. I mean, we were building the old iron block ones years back. So like Jay's is outside, and that's ridiculous power. So Chris asked us to have a look because it's what we do. So yeah, when it's running, especially when it's warm, it sits there and it taps. Now the kind of noise it is, I've got two ideas on what I think it is. Either the people who've built it have put shims under the tappets and the base circle's missing, or not missing, but there's no lash, or it's too tight and they tap, or the piston protrusion's too close and it's tapping ahead, because it doesn't sound like a bearing noise. But I've been wrong before, so we'll have a look.
Until you get inside, you don't.
No,
really...
I have theories.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be nice if it's the tappets, because then we can the shims on the lash adjusters, or the under tappets, because I've had that before. But normally that gives you compression problems as well. It gives you other issues. Whereas this just sits there and rattles. So the problem is because it's DI, I can't leak down test it with the rails out. So that kind of, let me take a photo of the bolt layout, because some are studs, if you have a look. So they hold the wiring loom bracket at the top, they hold the coolant pipes at the bottom. So always just
belt and braces.
Take a picture. I mean, I can go on elsewhere and look, but
yeah,
it's easier to look on my phone.
There you go.
And then I get lost looking at other photos. Or someone's messaged me, and then an hour goes by.
You're replying to a comment
Yeah.
on YouTube.
That happens a lot. So you probably saw a minute ago, there's just a little lever point here, and then we sort of get it started, and then you can just use a scraper then to finish off the sticky, because all the covers are glued, and then coolant hose here, so we just pull it towards us.
There it goes.
So we've got the back cover off. We'll just pull the two solenoids out, so we can then get a cam and the crank locks in. So crank lock goes in the back. Yeah. And then you just feel it in. So I've just got my hand on a ratchet this side. Just keep wiggling it back and forth.
Yeah.
Because there's a hole in the end of the crank, but you don't want to wind the tool in with a spanner. So that's in now, that's all the way in. You don't want to wind the tool in to hold the spanner. You kind of just knock the crank back and forth, and you can feel it. Even though the crank's locked, you just out ever so slightly on the two cams. Just a tweak, but it's enough that the threads won't sit in.
Yeah.
So if I put a
So talking about these These 5-pots then.
Yeah.
Are they generally quite reliable? Anything to look out for?
No, they're pretty good. They've just... It's like anything, you've just got to service them. You need... Like, if you're going to start tuning them, like what we always say to... is just get the injectors tested. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Like, get the inlet manifold off and get the injectors, and then when you start pushing then, just throw them away. Start again with injectors, because we've seen quite a lot of failures caused by injectors. There we go, that's better.
And obviously power-wise, we've seen these taken to...
Oh mate, well we're doing nearly 1100 horsepower now.
Yeah.
So I don't like the feel of that, so I'm just going to double check the thread in the cam isn't that good. It binds up about 2 threads down. So I thought it was me not getting a tool in straight, but someone's been in here before, and I tell you what they've done. You can see the bottom of that. They've used this to pull the cam straight. So look, that one goes in all the way to the bottom. Keep going. This one goes 2 threads in, and that's tight. Saying nothing. Saying nothing. So, I'm going to see if I can get a thread cleaner down there in a minute. Does that focus up alright? Mate, it's a camshaft. What is wrong with people? Problem is, there's a difference between engine builder and an engine assembler.
Yeah.
And these people that do shit like this, mate, I wouldn't trust them to put a Lego set together. I mean, what is that about? And you know why? Because they've basically wound the tools off, or had a hooky tool, had a crap tool, and they dragged the end of the threads out of the cam. Joke, mate. Joke. See, gone in nice now. So the reason we lock it up before we take the chains off now is now we know it's in a safe place.
Yeah.
As in, if I let the tension off a change, the cam's not going to come around and smash the pistons, damage the valves, anything like that. So that is why we do it. So now I can take cam variators off and we can take cam bridge off, because the cams are bolted to the underside of the rocker cover on this. They're not separate.
What is going on there?
How loose is that? Should we tell it? We'll figure it out, should we? How loose do we think that is? So they should be, what are they? 90 plus, no, 120, 80 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. Works out about 120 Newton meters, I think. It's about that, isn't it?
Is that Variator?
Yeah. How loose do you reckon? I'm going 60. They're not even 60 Newton meters.
Wow.
That is... At least they put the cams on the right, the variators on the right ones. If you look on these ones, this is what I was thinking. I've had it before where people have put shims in. And like that one under there, I can't move that rocker at all.
Yeah.
So that rocker's sat on a base circle. But normally you can just get them to move, but they feel proper tight. But we shall have a look. So we just crack them all off by hand. But what you'll also find is you'll get some stiction because the sealant holding the rocker cover to the head
Yeah.
will kind of hold it down. So half a turn here is fine, and then we'll wind them all out as one, sort of in a sequence. So all I'm doing is here, just cracking them off. So spin them out. So I'm going to leave them in, take them out, leave them in, take them out, leave them in, take them out, and then the remaining ones then we'll take out. We're doing a sequence. So you can tell they're all loose now. Look,
Yeah.
I'm spinning them off, and it hasn't. The valves. There's not enough strength in the valve springs to push the frame up. So what we'll do is we'll just start to break it slightly to help it move. So all you're trying to do is bring it all off square.
Yeah.
So you don't bend the cams. It's not as such a big problem on small engines. And when I mean small, I mean short engines. So like if you had a big V12, say, with old-fashioned cast cams, it'd be critical. It'd be so important. Whereas the newer stuff now is a little bit more resilient, and there's a lot more structure in it. But we still kind of
play it safe.
Yeah. So we literally just keep coming off half a turn, half a turn.
I suppose the temptation's there just to rush through it,
Rush
isn't it, with
through it.
people who
Yeah.
don't understand how important it is.
Yeah. So like heads, doing heads up, doing mains up, and doing cams up. There's a sequence, and you've just got to follow the sequence. I know I could do this end, like take 6 out this end, and it'd be all right because I'm at TDC on one, I'm at TDC on this cylinder, so both the valves are up, so there's no pressure on the valves. So I knew all of it, or I do know all the valve pressures this end, and you could feel it. It was these two letting the bridge ride up. So you just kind of get a feel for the engines. There we go. There's a lot of scores in them cams. Just checking I don't have a collapsed tappet. Because that'll obviously make a tapping noise. And then just compare the heights as well. Make sure one's, just because I can't compress it doesn't mean it's not stuck down.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of compare all the heights. Let's get a light. So remember, at the minute now we're looking for a problem, so just stripping it to bits and throwing it all on the bench is no good, because
you need to see it in situ, don't you?
Yeah.
Got to see what's...
Yeah, so none of those are sort of, well, I don't think that would cause our tapping noise, Dad. But bits in engines. I don't think there's shims on it, on the valve train. No, they don't want to go. There is. There's shims on valve train.
There you go.
And they're not magnetic, bruv, that's why I couldn't pick it up. I knew it, mate. Don't do that. Don't need to.
Let's hold it still, can't see.
It's a little, just literally a little washer.
There it is.
Right. The problem you get now is, now you've got no lash, right? everything is transmitted to the cam. So because there's no free play, what's the best way to describe it? Take the suspension off your car and go and bolt iron rods in where the dampers, where the shocks go, and then go and drive it down the road. You won't get to the bottom of the road without feeling sick.
Yeah.
So imagine you're the camshaft, and by putting a shim in and removing all the adjustment, all you've done is you've taken a tappet to the bottom of its stroke by compressing it, and now it's got no range of movement, which is why I said to you, normally when you've got a shim in, I tell you what, I wonder if we could do it. How many holes have I got? I wonder if I take one out, take a shim out, and then put a shim back in. Right, let's have a think how I could do that. We're going to conduct an experiment. So, I tell you what, mate, if you look here, cylinder 2, I've taken a shim out of this side. So I don't know whether you can see.
If I put that back down.
Right. If you come in there, can you see where the tappet meets the head? Yeah?
Yep.
Just here?
Yep.
Can you see how I don't have much exposed?
Yep.
I don't have much of my tip hanging out.
Indeed.
If you come this side now, just here, mate, over. Can you see there?
Oh, well.
There, mate. Just there, look. Can you
Yep.
see the difference?
Yep.
It's like a dog's pinky in a park, right? Right. So I'm going to bolt the cams back on,
Yep.
and I bet you I'm going to be able to wobble. I'm going to have lash back, so I'm going to be able to wobble that. All right. So we're going to do that. I tell you what, one day we should film one of these on one of those GoPro 360 cams and get your reaction as we do it. Then we could do a reaction vid.
We could do that, yeah.
So if you see, look, we're trying to, because there's no tension this side and it's sat, we're trying to pull this down as even as we can, if you see along the gap line. So that's why I haven't done much here.
Yeah.
Because I'm low here anyway, because I've got no spring pressure. So what I'm trying to do at the minute now is tighten these cams down, and they're acting on the valves. So all the pressure's this end. So this is why we're just working on this end at the minute. And I'm actually got more inlet pressure than I have exhaust, because I'm... See, if you weren't filming, I'd just buzz them all up with a gun. I wouldn't, it's a joke.
Joke.
Joke. Right, I can't get my 0.1 between the cam and the lash adjuster there. And I can't on that one. So I'm in there. So I can get under that. It's a bit hard to see because of how it shrouded it is. But should we take some shims out? What measurement are they? Hang on. One mil shims on both sides. Yeah. So we take them out. I'm going to take the head off anyway because I'm this far. I'll just check that the piston has been hitting the valve. We'll take the sump off, make sure the oil's clean, because that'll give us a good indication of the bearings. And then if all is well, well, we'll pull the head off anyway. If I'll pull the cams back off quick, mate, and then we'll pull the head off.
Cool.
Have a look-see. Don't seem like there's much molly lube on these. So when you use stud kit, you should use like ARP supply the special lube with them, or Carrillo if you use rod box or anything like that.
Yeah.
There should be a special molly lube under the seats and down the threads, because otherwise, without that sort of special grease, you don't know whether the torque you've achieved is because of friction or because of the clamping force you've put on the stud. Can you see where it's galled up? I've wiped it off, look, but can you see where it's galled up on the edges?
Yep.
Where there's not been any compound there, and it's literally galled up on the washer. So, do your homework on who builds engines for you. This is pretty shitty, to be fair. Right, all my boltings out. Magnetas.
Right, got a bit of noise in the background.
Jet wash.
Jet wash, Jordan.
He's excited about his new products. So get on his website. If I knew what it was, I'd tell you. Dav, you'll have to put a link in the description below.
Link in description below.
Yeah. And buy some products.
Yes.
Everyone in my family's getting snow foam for Christmas. Right, so we're that way, that way, that way. So we're going to bring these out one at a time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to throw all these away. We're going to put new ones in, but at least everything's in order then. So if you find anything relevant to a certain cylinder,
yep,
you can then trace it back. So we always strip in order. Right, can you see that plugs? You see the tips are clean on these.
Yep.
And then that plug's completely black.
Yep.
So something's going on with that cylinder. It is more sooty anyway, so nothing's hit the squish pad. So if you'd hit the squish pad, or the piston protrusion was too high, you'd have clean spots where it would hit this area of the head.
Yep.
It would hit contact there. So we don't have that problem, so it's not that. We obviously know we've got a problem with the shims in the tappets. I've got a weird spray pattern on this injector. Can you see that clean? The edge of the valve there is clean.
Yep.
So I've got a weird spray pattern on that injector. This cylinder's super sooty, but again, if I've got a valve sealing problem, it could be that. I've got some weird staining on the balls. You see that?
Yep.
It actually looks like they've honed. What? So it's had liners put in. I'll check how high or low they are. Because that feels low there. Yeah, if you come over here, mate, it's got a load of ball wipe there. Look, let me get a rag. Can you see where it's wiped the cylinder? Look. If you come angle there, can you see? See all the drag lines in it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's completely wiped the cross hatching out. And then over that side, I've got like a weird staining. Let me go and get a bridge gauge a minute.
Okay.
So if you run a flat stud like that, you should put a ball bearing in the bottom of the hole. You should never let a flat stud run to the bottom of the threads. You should have it bullet type, but it should have a bullet on the end of it. So, hopefully, if they're good, which I'm not convinced. Yeah.
Nothing.
No, because you can't make a hole with a flat bottom. You can't tap a hole with a flat bottom. So you'll always make a hole and tap it. Where did I just put it? I chuck it over it. What, tap and dice there? So you'll always make a hole with something like that. Yeah, so if you imagine the bottom of the hole tapers off because a drill bit isn't flat, right? What happens is the stud doesn't bottom out on the block. The stud bottoms out on the, it basically does that. Yeah. And it jams up before it ever seats properly. So it should, normally you'd run a bullet. So look, they've even put a hole in the bottom of it to seat on a bearing. Yep. And if you look there, can you see where it started to flatten the threads? Yep. So you should just literally drop a little ball bearing in the bottom. If you've got flat studs, which is fine, you just drop a ball bearing in the bottom of the hole, and then what it does is it takes out the angles of it, and then that seats on the ball bearing then. So that's what should happen. Right, the reason I've done that is because this block's been linered, right? And going that way, I can feel a lip. So if I get my pick, stops, yeah? So then we can measure. If I do it with you here. Right, so I'm on the deck face. 0. Right, so every increment is 0.01. So we're 0.1 of a mil low. Wow, 0.11. That means 0.8. But they should be proud. So then you've got the pressure of the ceiling fit. So now you've got 0.1 of a mil less pressure on a combustion ring. Let me get a bucket. We'll pull the oil out the bottom, just to make sure. It's a boring bit, you haven't got to see it, and then we'll flip it over and we'll pull the pan off. Or I might pull a pan off like this, just so we can check there's no debris in the bottom. Yep. And that sort of says then bearings are all right or whatever, and then we can feed back what's what. Cool. So I pulled the sump off. It's got a nice dent in it, which is never a good start. The oil's filthy. If you look how black it is, so the only way oil gets hot really is either it gets, the only way oil gets dirty or discolours is if it gets super hot, or if you've got combustion blow-by. And with some of the marks we've got on our cylinder walls, it would say that our piston to wall clearance probably isn't right. We've probably not got proper ring sealing now because we've washed out all the cross hatching. But also, the black sort of crap here, when you run your finger through it, is like excess moly grease. So I know when I took the studs apart, there was nothing under the seats and nothing on the threads. But can you see like where I've touched it? Look, can you see where the oil's doing this? Yep. So like something's in there. Something's not right. Like we've had quite a lot of problem with Miller's nano drive, because when you actually talk to the guys at Miller's, it doesn't like temperature. Like they say the max working limit of like nano drive is like 112 degrees. So we've had stuff sent off to them and got tested, and they're like, oh, it's been overheated. And you're like, Jesus, really? 112 degrees? So be careful what you use. So like now all our top spec stuff, anything we build anyway, we always say Motul 300V, but we've converted a lot of people over to Motul as well because it can handle a temperature. It's got to, especially when you're battering this. But what I would say to anyone, if you do have an engine built, so like what we say on ours is, put good oil in it, not necessarily 300V, but like 8100 say, 3 heat cycles to run it up, and literally from cold, just let it sit there and idle all the way until the fans come in. Do that 3 times, let it go cold, do it 3 times, and then that washes all the crap out. Pull the pan off, clean the pan, put a new filter on it, put your oil back in, and then run it in. And what's probably not happened in this is it probably hasn't had the sump back off since it's been built, to make sure all this debris goes. Because look, I've just disturbed that. Can you see how it discoloured all that area underneath? Yeah. So like all you do is, anything that gets sat in the pan then gets picked back up by your oil. So the cleaner you can keep your pan and keep your oil. At the end of the day, it lives in there because it's not a dry sump. The cleaner you can keep, the better. So we're going to go back to the guys who sent us the engine and tell them what we think. Then they're going to have to make a decision on what they want to do on the block, because I don't think it's been built that long. And then we can go from there. But the liners have sunk slightly, or they've been installed too low. The studs we can sort. I don't know, without taking the pistons out, I don't know the piston size. But then heads, I'd probably refresh the heads, cut the seats, measure the springs, put them back together, take the shims out, and build the heads back up. New tappets, new rollers, and I need to inspect the cam. One of the cams had picked up on the face, and then go from there. But yeah, it's, you know, if you're getting an engine built, the whole idea of the project is what you're trying to do. Because on these, like, they're torque limited on the rods, but unless you've got 1,000 horsepower, we've done 994 horsepower on a stock block. So what did Sean's? I think Sean's is like in the 8.8s, and that's a stock block engine, just with proper build. Berto's has got a linered block, and we've done a couple of others. But Sean just proved that you don't need, as long as you look after it, you don't need a linered block. So this has gone linered block. I know it's not on a big turbo kit, so unless there was damage before, and that's why they've gone liners. But to be honest, liners is dearer than a new block. So I don't know. We need to do some more digging to find out who built it, what they did, how they did it, what parts they used. I think I found why it's rattling. But then as we've stripped it, we've also found other little bits and pieces as well that aren't great. Like taking a sump box out, one of the bolts is snapped, the head snapped off, and they've just put sealant on the end of the bolt and stuck it back in the hole, so at least it looks like there's a bolt hole there. Why not just turn the engine over and get the screw out? So yeah, not cool, but well, this is what we face every day. Engines, mate.
There you go.
Engines. And it's probably worse on engines like this, because if you're having a V10 built, people are more likely to do a lot more homework because the bill's normally a lot higher. Whereas we get a lot of people ring us and go, oh, I want this spec or I want that spec. So say they want the same, like when Berto's video went out that we did, like, oh, how much for this build? And I told them, and they were like, oh, my mate can do it for this much. No worries, go to your mate. And then when they've been to their mate, we get, oh, now my engine's doing this. Yeah, because they're an engine assembler, not an engine builder. So this is going to have to be cleaned, measured, and then we'll come up with what to do next. But the reason it rattled is because there's bloody valve shims under it. And what did I say at the beginning?
On that note then.
Yep, let's go and have tea.
Nice.
Someone did win a t-shirt for guessing the tool price, the cylinder head bench tool price, but we'll do a social media post because I can't remember his bloody name.
Sounds good.
So, see you next week.